What if tomorrow was waiting for your courage? Some people spend years believing they are waiting for courage. Tomorrow has been quietly waiting for something else. Not for the version of you who has already decided. Not for the version who has already healed, already practiced, already gathered enough proof that the outcome will be kind. That version does not need courage. That version only needs a calendar. Tomorrow has never asked for that version. It has been waiting instead for the uncertain one. The one standing in the doorway without knowing what waits on the other side of it. The one whose hands are still shaken, whose voice has not yet learned how to sound steady. Tomorrow has always known this is the only version of a person capable of beginning anything at all. There is a kind of prison that leaves no marks, no bars, no walls anyone else can see. It is built quietly, one delay at a time, out of reasonable sounding sentences. Not yet. Not like this. Not until I'm ready. Each sentence seems harmless on its own. A person could live an entire life inside one, never noticing the door was never locked from the outside. Somewhere there is a staircase. No one climbs anymore. The wood has softened with age. A thin rail of light falls through a window at the landing, and in that light, dust turns slowly, unhurried, the way small things move when nothing is asking them to hurry. The staircase was built to be climbed. It has simply been waiting long enough that people forgot what it was for. This is what hesitation becomes if it is left alone for years. Not the decision, a forgetting. Consider a forest before sunrise. The light is not yet decided what color it will be. The trees stand the way they have stood for longer than any name has existed for them, and somewhere beneath the underground growth, small animals wait in a stillness that looks from a distance like peace. It is not peace, it is a calculation. Every creature in that forest is listening for the sound that tells it whether this moment is safe. And yet, at some invisible signal that no human has ever learned to hear, the first bird begins. Not because the danger has passed, it has not passed. The forest is exactly as uncertain in that instant as it was the moment before. The bird simply begins anyway, and the sound moves outward through the trees like something being permitted, until the whole forest is singing into a morning it cannot yet see the shape of. No one has ever seen a forest wait for guarantees. Perhaps this is because certainty was never part of the arrangement to begin with. Perhaps it never will be. And perhaps that absence is not the problem people have spent their lives assuming it to be. Somewhere in the room with soft evening light falling across warm floorboards, a child is learning to walk. She has fallen 11 times this hour. Her mother has stopped counting, and what is remarkable is that the child eventually walks. Every child eventually walks. What is remarkable is that she rises the 12th time, with no more certainty than she had after the first fall. Nothing has been proven to her. No confidence has arrived to make the next attempt safer. She simply stands, because standing is what happens next. No child has ever waited to believe in walking before attempting it. Belief, it seems, is not the gate a person passes through before movement is allowed. Belief is something built out of the movement itself. Afterward, the way a path is built by the walking of it rather than the walking being permitted by an already existing path. Tomorrow already knows this. It has always known it. It is why tomorrow has never once asked the personal confidence before agreeing to arrive. There is an old man who stands each evening beside the sea, in a coat too heavy for the season, watching water fold over itself the way it has folded for longer than his family has had a name. He does not come to watch the water. He comes to remember a version of himself that once stood on a different shore, decades earlier, deciding not to board the ship that would have carried him somewhere unfamiliar. He tells no one this story. There's no bitterness in the way he watches the waves now, only a kind of tenderness for the man he used to be, who was so afraid of an unlived life that he built. Inside a life made entirely of familiar rooms, it was not a bad life. It was simply a smaller one that it might have been, shaped less by what he wanted than by what he could not yet risk wanting. He does not know that on the ship he never boarded. Tomorrow was waiting too. Tomorrow waits on every shore. It has never once asked which one a person chooses. It only asks whether they are willing to choose while still afraid. History remembers courage. Strangely, it flattens it, over time, into something that looks like certainty from a distance. The explorer who left, the building who began, the traveler who walked into unmapped country, history tells their stories afterwards. Once the outcome is already known, and so the fear gets edited out, the way a river slowly edits the shape of the stone it moves through. But nothing that has ever mattered began with certainty. It only appears that way in hindsight, because endings have a way of making beginnings look inevitable at the actual moment of departure. Every one of those people stood exactly where the old man stood, on his shore, unsure, unproven, afraid in some private and unspoken way that history has no interest in recording. A river does not know, on the first day it meets a stone, that it will eventually carve through it. It only knows how to keep moving. The carving happens without any awareness of its own significance, one patient moment following another, until centuries later, something that was once a solid has become passage. Perhaps courage has always worked the same way, not as a single act of tremendous will, arriving at all at once like weather, but as a kind of patient, unglamorous continuing showing up again to the same uncertain place, the same unanswered door, the same unfinished attempt, long enough that the shape of the resistance eventually changes without ever announcing when. There is a bridge somewhere, with a single crack running the length of its oldest stone. People still cross it. They have always still crossed it. The crack does not mean the bridge cannot hold it. It means the bridge has held things before and remembers the weight. Somewhere else, the rain falls on a street with no one in it. The streetlights hold small circles of gold against the wet stone, and behind one window a candle burns in a room where someone has been sitting for a long while, holding a letter they have had not yet opened. They know, in the way a person always knows before opening something important, that whatever is inside will change the shape of what they believed about their life until this evening. This is why the letter remains sealed on the table, not because they lack the strength to read it, because reading it will make something real that, until now, has only been possible. There is a particular kind of fear that has nothing to do with danger. It is the fear of what becomes true the moment an unopened door is finally opened. Somewhere a mountain path disappears into fog before it reaches the summit. Anyone standing at its base can see perhaps 30 steps ahead. Not the peak, not the weather, waiting near it. Not whether the path narrows or widens beyond what the eye can reach. Only 30 steps and a soft grey wall where the rest of the answer should be. Every person who has ever climbed that mountain has climbed it exactly this way, 30 visible steps at a time, trusting that the path continues past what the fog allows them to see. Because turning back has never once answered the question of what was waiting beyond it. Fog does not lift because someone demands to see the future, to see further. It lifts, if it lifts at all, only after someone has kept walking through it. Maybe this is the quiet mistake so many carry without noticing, the belief that clarity must arrive before movement, when it has almost always been the other way. Movement is what eventually produces the clarity, not the reverse. There's a candle that has been burning in the window for hours. Its flame, small and steady, against the darkening room. It does not know how long the night will last. It has no way of knowing whether it will still be burning by morning, or whether the wind finding its way in through some old gap in the flame will end it before the sky changes, and still it burns exactly as it is built to burn, giving it a small light to the room regardless of whether anyone is there to see it. Regardless of how long the darkness intends to stay, no flame has ever asked the night for a guarantee before agreeing to burn. There is dust in the shaft of afternoon light in some forgotten room, moving in slow unhurried spirals that seem, if watched long enough, almost patient that it has nowhere to be. It simply moves because moving is what light and air do to small things left in their path. And there is something in this, something almost too quiet to name, about the way a person, too, is moved gently forward by simply staying present inside their own life, rather than by any grand decision made all at once in a single dramatic hour. Nothing about courage, in the end, resembles the version so many were taught to expect. It does not arrive as thunder. It does not announce itself with music. It rarely feels, in the moment it is needed, like courage at all. It feels like fear that decided to keep walking anyway. It feels like standing in a doorway with shaking hands and stepping through. Regardless of what waits on the other side, it feels like the 12th attempt to stand, made with no more certainty than the first. Confidence, it turns out, that was never the beginning of anything. It was always the result, the quiet reward that arrives afterwards, but built slowly out of every uncertain step that came before it. The way a path is built only by the walking. The way passes through stone is built only by the water that never once knew on any given day that it was accomplishing something permanent. Tomorrow has watched this pattern in every person who has ever lived. The doorway, the hesitation, the staircase left unclimbed for years, and then, sometimes, finally climbed. Tomorrow has never judged the years of hesitation. It understands fear too well for that. It has simply continued, arriving morning after morning, the way it always has, carrying requirements, asking for nothing except smallest willingness to meet it while still unsure. Somewhere tonight a door stands, slightly open, that has stood closed for a long time. Somewhere a letter waits unread on the table beside the candle that has not yet gone out. Somewhere a mountain path disappears into fog that will not lift until someone chooses to walk into it anyway. And somewhere in the quiet space just before sleep, someone is realizing, perhaps for the first time, that they were never actually waiting to become brave enough for their life. Their life was waiting for them to begin it while still afraid. Tomorrow does not ask a person to arrive without fear. It never has. It only asks that they arrive. And somewhere past the fog, past the unopened letter, past the staircase no one has climbed in years, tomorrow is still standing exactly where it has always stood, not ahead of your courage, waiting for it to catch up, but beside it, from the very first uncertain step.